What is up, folks? I recently did a gig out in Brooklyn, New York, where I was operating my red Komodo with Cine carbon fiber Cine lenses on the new DJI Ronin S2. It was a week-long project where I was operating that setup on a daily basis, and I loved operating the RS2 so much that I ordered my own as soon as I got back home here in LA. Now, as a past owner of the original Ronin S, I'm going to be breaking down all of my favorite features of the new RS2 and why I think it's simply the best, smartest gimbal that I have ever used. And then I'm going to show you some awesome add-ons that I highly recommend. But first, here you'll see me testing out my Komodo on the RS2 the day I got it in the mail, and on there you'll see I'm balancing it with the Zeiss Milvus 25mm Super Speed. That is a beast of a lens, and the RS2 is not phased one bit. This lens is like a 3-pound lens. It's no joke. Where I can pull my own focus on the little fireman there. That's pretty cool, huh? I'm gonna go in the back to the picture of my mom, and then I'm gonna come to the front to the little guy. Hee. It's no joke. RS2, that's what's up. Now, the new touchscreen on the RS2 is a huge step up from the original Ronin S, and it is very responsive. One of the most simple features of it that I enjoy is that you can lock the screen, and that comes in very handy so you don't accidentally change any controls while operating the gimbal. So the new follow focus motor of the new RS2 is way more advanced than the original Ronin S as well. You can now pull focus with your pointer finger. And having this front dial wheel built into the front of the pistol grip, it keeps other mounting points open for additional accessories such as your monitor or the briefcase handle grip, because also on each side of this pistol grip is little Nato mounts. And they also have smart pogo pins in there as well for, additional DJI accessories. Something else really cool about the RS2 is that it comes in this handy little package, really nice soft case, and it's double layered. You can put all of your stuff in here. This is it comes jam-packed full of accessories when you buy the Pro Combo Pack, but also I have added other accessories that I'm going to talk about at the end, and they all still fit in here as well. It's pretty nice. There's lots of nice compartments in here. One of them being the new Raven Eye, which is the thing that all the hipsters are losing their minds about. Now, we're going to talk about this at the end because I'm not a big fan of this thing. It's just not for me. But if you want to stick around for the end, then that's when we'll talk about things that I don't really enjoy about the new RS2. But right now I want to focus on the little things that I think really make this gimbal stand out. Now, to most of you, these won't seem that cool because they are pretty simple, but the reality is if you're anybody like me that's having to constantly deal with trying to rig bigger builds onto these little pistol grip gimbals, well, I think you too will find out very soon here why these new features of the RS2, very smart features, are simply game-changing. Primarily because they just make my life easier on a real working set. In other words, I just need things to work when I expect them to work. And a little disclaimer here, I wasn't even 100% caught up on all these new features on the Brooklyn job, so I wasn't even able on that real gig to really take full advantage of everything this RS2 has to offer. But since being home and playing with it more, I've really tapped into these things, and they truly do make for a way more efficient process when working on set. The first one is auto-tune. Now, DJI recommends you use auto-tune every time after balancing to ensure the smoothest, most stable operation. And it really does come in handy anytime you're making little slight changes to your rig build or when swapping lenses. Now, if you're shooting on a real project where you have a set of primes, you'll understand why that's so beneficial. After you do auto tune, you can also run a gimbal auto check and a horizontal calibration. Now, the gimbal auto check is a test you can run really quick just to double check and make sure everything is properly balanced. And when you do that gimbal auto check, if anything is wrong, the touchscreen is going to tell you if errors were detected. So then you know right away that you need to either reassess your balance job or just maybe simply do some rerouting of your cable management. And then if you ever find yourself in a standstill and you can't really seem to pinpoint where the problem is in terms of balancing, then that's where you're going to want to go into that touchscreen and run a balance check. Now this shows you exactly where the gimbal is having any issues. It's showing you where the weight is displaced over all three of your axes, the pan, tilt, and roll axes, and it's even going to tell you where you would need to tweak each one. Now, talking about shooting in briefcase mode, that is something that causes most gimbals to bug out and wig out and go crazy a little bit, and the RS2 is no exception. And I did experience that on the Brooklyn job, and we were really pressed for time, and you know, that was my first couple days dealing with the gimbal, and even then I wasn't super familiar with it. But knowing what I know now about the gimbal is that is crucial for horizontal calibration mode, and even the gimbal auto check where you can go into the balance check and see what's going on with that. Something really cool that may help you with shooting in briefcase mode is when you go into that horizontal calibration on the touchscreen, you can actually set and define the parameters of what the horizontal line actually is. So that can come in very handy for not only briefcase mode, but also under sling mode. And this is something that I cannot stress enough. The RS2 is so smart with those 4 auto smart features and that balance check. It's literally going to show you and tell you what's going on with the gimbal, where you need to tweak anything, and it'll tell you immediately if any errors were detected. So there's really no second guessing. You don't really have to stress your brain so much anymore with these new smart features. You just have to know how to work your way around inside of the menus of the touchscreen. Now these 4 auto features are so beneficial, especially on that Brooklyn job where we had so many cables running off of the rig build for the first AC and the Teradek, and all those little things push and pull the camera in very tiny increments, but can easily throw off the gimbal's entire balance. But now with these 4 new smart features, the auto tune, the gimbal auto check, the balance check, and the horizontal calibration, you'll know without a doubt that your camera will fly with 0 issues. But more importantly, by utilizing these 4 new smart features, you will be preserving the life of your gimbal's motors. Because anytime you're running any gimbal that is improperly balanced, you're forcing the gimbal to work harder than it should. Which reminds me of another cool little safety feature that the RS2 has, and that is sleep mode. Now, if you find your RS2 is constantly falling into sleep mode, you'll see a little crescent moon logo on the touchscreen, and this basically just telling you that it's all out of whack and it just doesn't feel like working right now. And that would definitely be a time where you need to start running those 4 auto features and pinpointing where the trouble is. Now, another new feature of the gimbal is called push mode. Now, this basically allows you to physically put your hands on the gimbal and adjust both the tilt and pan axes so you can quickly adjust for the exact framing and composition you want, and it doesn't even cause the gimbal to bug out. It will know it's in push mode, and it will allow you to physically move the pan and tilt axes. Some other really nice quick adjustment tools that you can quickly go into the touchscreen and access and change is the joystick speed and smoothness, the gimbal stiffness, and the functions of the front dial wheel. Because depending on what lenses you're using on your camera, you can actually make this front dial wheel do a lot more different functions rather than just simply pulling focus. And you can even go into the settings and make fine-tuning adjustments to that front dial wheel. Finally, DJI has added a really cool new function called Super Smooth. So that Super Smooth function is something you're going to want to turn on when you're dealing with micro jitters. And it's especially useful for car mounts, or maybe even if you're just having the gimbal in your hand and you're inside of a vehicle and you're going down a bumpy road, you're doing some kind of, low budge interior car stuff like that, such as Dog Times Productions, then that's something where the Super Smooth is going to come in very handy just to control those micro jitters. Another cool honorable mention is the new quick release plate system is pretty rad. So it has like a double stack system, which actually comes in handy with the Komodo, because the Komodo is just a little 4x4 box. And when you set it up with big, heavy, long lenses, that's sometimes an issue with other gimbals. Well, all those problems are now gone because it has this double stack quick release plate system, but also this little smart fine tuning wheel. And I can just move my camera in very tiny increments front to back. And that comes in very, very handy when using heavy, long lenses on the red Komodo. Now, I do suggest purchasing the Pro Combo Pack because comes with so much extra stuff. It really is worth that extra $100 or so. And really you're gonna want it just for the new follow focus motor system alone. But I know all my guys with HDMI cameras are gonna want that Raven Eye system as well. So it's definitely beneficial to check out the Pro Combo Pack. And now some other additional AKS items that I highly recommend. The first one is this little Nato monitor sidearm from Small Rig. Now this thing's really cool. Like I said, the pistol grip has 2 Natos on each side of it, and this is a Nato lock here, so I can just simply slide this down on here. And with the little wing nut, you tie it in. And there's cold shoe mounts, there's quarter 20s. This is a kind of a quick release quarter 20 to attach your monitor or even your little cell phone or whatever you want to use. And it's completely tiltable, so you can tilt that monitor any which way you like. It really comes in handy. Something else from Small Rig is these little screen protectors, and they're actually really nice. They're heavy duty, they're durable, and they're really affordable. They're under 10 bucks, so you can't go wrong with these. You get a couple in there, and it's just something really nice to protect your touch screen. Something else is this Small Rig Sling hand grip, which is crucial for shooting in briefcase mode. And this one is pretty nice. You order just the handle itself. It's only like 40 bucks, and it can attach to the NATO arm that already comes with the Pro Combo Pack. And the reason why that one kind of stinks is because, well, you need a tool to adjust it. Well, if you order this Small Rig Sling hand grip, this attaches to the DJI NATO arm, then Small Rig gives you this locking wing nut with it. And now I can quickly adjust the angle of this, right? So rather than buying the entire piece from Small Rig, which is like $20 more, it just made sense to buy just the grip. This is really nice. It's got nice silicone grips on it, lots of extra mounting points and options, has a cold shoe here in the back end. But then, you just don't have this spare NATO rail that came in your Pro Combo Pack just laying around, right? So it's better just to utilize both. And Small Rig was really smart to include that locking wing nut. And something else that is really cool on this DJI NATO arm is a quarter 20 in here, just one little quarter 20. And what I do is I have this little mini V-mount clamp that I bolt into this, and then I can attach little V-mount batteries like this one from Global Dynamics United, or also, the nano ones from Core SWX. There's plenty of options out there for little 98 watt-hour V-mount batteries. And then I just run everything down into these V-mounts, and it powers everything on the rig. So this is the little miniature V-mount clamp I was telling you about. This one actually is from June, so I think this came with the June Power Plus pack, which I still have, which is also great for powering things on my RS2. So thanks for that, June, right? But yeah, you just can bolt it right in there, and comes in really handy. Just a little V-mount clamp, and just clamp it in there on the NATO arm. The last thing that you will definitely need, especially if you're using big Cine lenses with the Komodo, are these little counterweights from U-Rig. Small Rig also makes something similar to this. What's nice about this, these are like Arca-Swiss clamp, so they clamp onto the back end of your quick release plate, and that really comes in handy. Now, I haven't had to use it with this particular setup. This is the Zeiss Milvus 50mm super speed. It's still a pretty heavy duty lens. They're all easily over 2 pounds, but it wasn't crazy enough to have to utilize this, but with those Rokinon Zines, definitely was using these every day. Okay, so finally, let's talk about this Raven Eye system. Oh, I almost dropped it. It's not like I use it, but I'm sure if you have an HDMI only camera, I'm sure this thing is great and handy for you. It clips right on here onto the bottom of the gimbal. It is smart, I guess, but to me, at the end of the day, it's just a wireless video transmitter that uses an app. I mean, it's essentially the same thing as like an Axoon Cine I or an Andy Cine Benbox, in my opinion. The app even actually reminds me of that. But speaking of the app, I think DJI is kind of still has some things to tweak out in terms of how they're utilizing this Raven Eye within their own DJI Ronin app. So here's where I found some instant troubles just when playing around with this Raven Eye, is the fact that you have the Raven Eye app, which exists inside of the DJI Ronin app. Now, just saying that doesn't sound weird, right? But let me tell you where it gets a little tricky. So if you have any familiarity with the original Ronin S and the DJI Ronin app, is the fact that the Ronin has its own Bluetooth, right? So that's really how you connect to the Ronin app, and how you can control it is through Bluetooth. Well, this is kind of where the trouble starts. And then if you want to connect to the Raven Eye, well, now the Raven Eye is telling you that you need to turn off Bluetooth and connect to the Raven Eye's Wi-Fi, because this thing has its own Wi-Fi. This is where it gets a little weird, because it's like, okay, you know, the Raven Eye can only exist with Wi-Fi, and the Ronin app can only exist with Bluetooth, but they can't both be on at the same time. However, the apps exist within each other. So I may be articulating that horribly, but I hope you're following along with what I'm saying here. Basically, you connect to the gimbal, you go into the Ronin app, and then you can control your gimbal through the Ronin app. But if you want to do anything with this Raven Eye, you have to disconnect from the Ronin app and connect to the Raven Eye's Wi-Fi. However, it's kind of a chore to jump in and out of the app, going back and forth in your iPhone's settings, because the apps exist within each other. I don't understand why DJI just don't make the Raven Eye have its own standalone app. Wouldn't that just make a lot more sense? It's very strange to me, but I'm sure there's some weird logistics engineering-wise of why, you know, you have to connect to the gimbal first and then go into, but it's a lot of back and forth. And if you guys know me, you know how I operate. When we start getting into that territory of bouncing in and around on a phone or an iPad, it's kind of where I lose my patience and I kind of draw the line. But it goes even beyond that, right? So at the end of the day, I did all that, and you still get into the Raven Eye app. The biggest issue for me is that it's just an app. I don't understand the craze about it. It's literally the same thing as any other little wireless video transmitter app. And I guess I'm not hip into it because my camera is SDI only. So that means that I just have to run a lot more cables and a lot more crap on the gimbal to use just an app. So I think you're beginning to see my biggest qualms with it. The cool thing is that if you did want to spring for the additional $169, you could get the DJI 3D focus system. Now this is like a little camera that mounts on top of your camera, basically, and then it connects into the Raven Eye, it connects into the gimbal or something like that, and then you can even run the follow focus motor directly into the Raven Eye. You can run the HDMI cable into the Raven Eye. This thing needs power, so you have to run power to this. So you start to see there's a lot of cables running into this Raven Eye. Basically what that 3D focus system does, it allows you to use active track with the Raven Eye. Now if you've ever used a DJI drone like the Mavic Pro, then you've certainly used active track or have seen active track before. So that's kind of the craze with that whole 3D focus system. But the biggest thing is, like, if you are a Komodo user, now you're gonna have to figure out how to cross convert the SDI signal to work with the mini HDMI that's on this Raven Eye. You just start to see it. For me, I just felt like that's a really big headache. It's kind of a big to-do. It's a big chore at the end of the day just to have a wireless follow focus system through an app. Do you know what I mean? Someone like me, I just would never consider replacing a true dedicated wireless video transmission system or even a true dedicated follow focus system for that matter with something like this, especially with all the work that it entails, especially all the extra cables and things you have to run, especially when using a camera that has no HDMI. You start to see, okay, this makes sense why this guy is not hip on this whole Raven Eye system. But hey, if you have an HDMI camera, by all means, you know, rig it up and connect to the app, see how cool it works. Something outside of the Raven Eye system that I would recommend is either just pulling focus yourself, because the new little follow focus motor system on the RS2 is quite enjoyable for that, or just use a more professional option in terms of monitoring and pulling focus. Now the nice thing about the RS2 is that it can handle a lot more weight than its predecessor, so using something like a larger follow focus motor such as the Tilta Nucleus M is not going to be a deal breaker when using the RS2. Now, in the instance of the Brooklyn job, we used a Teradek unit and a Tilta Nucleus Nano motor and a First AC pulled focus for me. Now, the flip side to all of this is if you are wanting to pull your own focus with the new follow focus motor system that comes with the RS2, the touchscreen really makes it simple. You can go in here and you can calibrate the follow focus motor, you can set your own end marks, and you can even create hard stops if you're using stills lenses. And that comes in really handy if you're using something like the ever so popular Sigma Art 18-35. So that's the video, folks. As always, there are links down below to all of this stuff. I highly encourage you to check those out. Do research for yourself, but I cannot recommend the RS2 enough. I simply love it. It has a huge advancement from working on the original Ronin S. I don't know why I was so stubborn for so long, but you guys know, if you know the channel, you know me, I am a little bit of a stubborn asshole, right? So I was sitting on the original Ronin S for quite some time, and I was really limiting myself, right? Good thing that came out of that Brooklyn job is just how awesome this gimbal is, and me being able to work with it for a week long, really getting used to it. So that's why I just had to buy my own as soon as I got back here. Now, if you're interested in diving in on the behind the scenes of that Brooklyn job and all the other jobs I'm hired to work on, then I encourage you to check out the Dog Times Patreon, because that is the #1 place to be for all of my truly dedicated fans and supporters. The Patreon is the only sponsor of my YouTube channel, so all the appreciation and support is truly appreciated. And the Dog Times group is growing. We have our own little private filmmaking club over there. You know, I post weekly lighting challenges for the guys and gals to do, and everyone submits work through the private Discord chat that we have, and I provide work feedback. We dive into career strategies, because if you're new here, a lot of you may not know that I have been working in the film industry for 11 years now, full time. So I know my way around these things a little bit in terms of providing advice, in terms of whatever it is, you know, talking about reels or website building or just, you know, schools or whatever the case may be. So I highly encourage you to check it out, as well as I break down all the jobs I get hired to work on, and I take you through the whole process from even the beginning of pitching myself, how I get jobs, you know, how I set my rates, how I create my own portfolio and things like that. And then we go through the whole pre-production process on each job, how I prepare for those jobs. And then of course we look at all of the behind the scenes, what happens on the day. We go through every day on set, and then we finally break down the final image, looking at what's going on there in Resolve. So highly encourage you all to check that out. But I get it, it is a Patreon, so obviously the #1 way to support the channel is just simply tap that subscribe button, tap the like button if you like it, tap the dislike button if you don't like my ugly face, or do whatever you may, and maybe if you do like it, share it with a few of your friends. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you next week.